Welcome to AssetTV. I'm Jillian Kemmerer here in San Diego for the Schwab Impact Conference. Right now I'm here with Erik Christman. He's a managing partner at Oxford Financial Partners. Erik, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So let's just get started with where you're seeing value in the marketplace today. Tell me about some of the things you're keeping your eye on.
Yeah, so much of what we're focused on right now is taking a look at how do we structure the firm to allow us, obviously all the stuff going on at DOL and all that fun stuff. We made the move to independence in the past year. Actually, to move all our custody to Schwab. But I think these are things that were trends or 5 years in the making with us. We have always operated really with our clients' best interest in heart, and this fiduciary, the F word, was something we've always been doing. It was interesting. I was actually in Uber the other day, and you have these great conversations in Uber, and the guy said, "What do you do?" I'm like, "I'm a financial advisor," and I expected him to say, "Oh, well, what do you think about the markets?" And he's like, "You a fiduciary?" And it's yeah, exactly. That's the look I had on my face. I was like, yes, I am. I'm glad you asked, but wow, no one's asked that. So maybe something's changing out there, and for the better. So we've spent a lot of time in the past year just looking at how we should be positioned to make sure that we can tell that story to a lot more people, because we've had that as our core being for a very long time. So we've actually made the move to independence with Schwab, left the broker-dealer world, and now we're starting to take a look at what are the big tools and resources that are available to us that maybe in the broker-dealer world, they just didn't quite see value in providing to clients.
Got it. And speaking of clients, what are some of the things you're hearing from them? Are they demanding anything new of you going into next year?
We work primarily with retirees, and we've had, most of our conversations with them are very long-term focused. So we have this phrase saying we build portfolios in anticipation of volatility, not in reaction to it. And so the good news is we've got a strong philosophy around doing that. So our clients don't get too excited about any particular thing that's going on in the marketplace, although there's this little election thing going on right now. If you've heard about that, they're a little up in arms about that. But we've coached them on, hey, we've got a plan for getting through this, and we've got some things held in reserve.
Do you find that you have to convince retirees of the value of international in a portfolio, or are they coming to you and clamoring for it?
We take an approach with, we know that the biggest threat that retirees face is inflation. Even though there is officially no inflation out there, that loss of purchasing power is really the biggest enemy they have. And if you look at what has historically, going back to many years, been effective, it's been having a healthy dose of stocks at all times in your portfolio. And so our clients' portfolios have always been very heavily weighted that direction, but with this nice buffer, what we call a stability bucket, to offset that. Within that equity sleeve, we've always had a pretty good dose of international. So that's not a new thing for our clients. It's just a question of how much should be in there. But it's interesting because they'll say, those international stocks, they're kind of scary, aren't they? And I said, well, what kind of car do you drive? Oh, I've got a Toyota. It runs really well, and I've had it for 8 years. I'm like, okay. So that's not an American company, you understand? But all those other international companies are scary. Like, okay, Nestle, you can go on and on. Obviously, the idea of an international company anymore is that, many of them manufacture things right inside the United States. And so I think that line is starting to blur a little bit, but it's still, with the retirees, it's an interesting conversation still. I'm
sure. So whether it's in light of technology or the implementation of the DOL ruling, what are some of the trends you're looking at going into next year?
I think we think the fiduciary thing is fantastic, but I think that's because we're positioned to not get caught up and be tarred and feathered with that, like a lot of firms might be. So much what we're looking at is how can we still find ways to leverage technology to try to drive down the cost of doing business, yet still keep the human element involved. And there's been a lot of discussion at the conference this week about that very thing. And it's not incremental change. You have to actually really rip the cover off of what you've been doing and say, we want to provide the human element, but there must, how do we really, really take cost out of the system and try to pass it on to clients? And so, this robo thing, this is one of the funniest things I think I've heard. 3 or 4 years ago, robos were going to put everybody out of business, which is, you're laughing. Of course, it's laughable, right? There's always going to be this human element to what we provide, but that doesn't mean the robo platforms aren't brilliant. They are driving cost out of the system. They are making things less expensive for clients, making things easier for clients, a nice app that shows you everything that's going on. But, from our standpoint, on the asset management side, it's really taking cost out for us as well. You need to find a way to explain that to clients and show them, hey, here are the benefits of doing it. And so we are been doing some research in-house, probably going to leverage Schwab's platform to get that done because it's just absolutely brilliant. And we're going to get to a point where the investment piece of this, although incredibly important, it's just one thing that we do. And you need to try to drive costs down. But who's going to do the estate planning work? Who's going to look at their tax situation? Who's going to bring all that together? That's still, I think, pretty much a human role.
And in terms of the structure of your firm, what are you thinking about moving into next year? Are you expanding? How are you dealing with the changing tides?
Yeah, this has been an interesting thing. So we have, I'm only 45, but we're trying to get out in front now, long before it's time, to say what would a succession look like in our firm. And we've engaged a nice consulting firm in the industry to help us map out what an internal succession is going to look like now. Even though I think most often those conversations don't even happen until the advisor is 55 or 65 and it's almost too late. And we think we have something, we have a nice platform already, and we are looking at finding ways to make the ownership of that platform be very broadly based. I don't want to be the sole owner of this firm. I want to be, I'd be happy being a minority owner of a firm that was this large, because we all win in that situation. And so we're putting some things in place right now to allow us to do that.
Well, that's great. So I'm glad you're keeping an eye on the future, and we'll look forward to chatting with you again soon to see what else you're keeping your eye on.
Thanks so much.
Of course. Pleasure speaking with you. Thanks so much for joining us. From San Diego, I'm Jillian Kemmerer for AssetTV.